Okay, today we're going to completely disassemble a Model 1500 Howa. This particular one is the 308 calibre. Not many components make up the weapon, so it should be nice, straightforward, and hopefully we'll get through it in 6 or 7 minutes. First procedure is cock the weapon. Just behind the action you'll see a small lever that you press forward and the bolt comes straight out. If you want to take the pin out, you just grab, as it's come out of the weapon, grab it, turn it clockwise, keep hold of it, and it'll click out. Firing pin removed. There's no point in taking the pin any further down. You can, there is a small pin behind here, but you're in a world of pain if you're working on your own there without a jig. Stick it to an ultrasonic cleaner, sparing amount of lube, don't overdo it, and obviously check condition of the end of it. There's your pin bolt system stripped. Okay, the weapon. Turn it upside down now, and in the floor plate trigger housing you'll see 2 spline headed bolts. Remove both of these, but support the action with the stock as you're removing them, or the two could separate, you could end up damaging. You will notice that the rear bolt is longer. Remember that when you come to rebuild. And once you've took them out, the floor plate and your mag spring will come straight out of there, and basically the weapon is now ready for separating from the stock. Little tiny bit of manipulation and out it will come. It will leave behind, if it hasn't come out with your floor plate assembly, the magazine tube. Now when you come to rebuild it, the magazine tube is slightly chamfered and it's fatter at the rear. That's the way it goes in. Your chamfered goes into the action and your wider section goes to the back. Okay, so that can be taken out. Now once you're at this stage, we can now see the trigger unit. There's no nasty ball bearings going to fly all over the room at this stage. There's one Allen headed bolt here that holds the full assembly onto the action. That's the only bolt that actually holds the assembly on. But on the left hand side of the action you'll see here a slot headed bolt that holds the bolt release rocker. Now at the back of the small headed bolt, just inside there, you'll see a little zoom, there is a spring. If you take that out without knowing the spring's there, and without catching that spring, then once you remove the rocker, the spring's going to go for a trip around the workshop, which you don't want. So it's a small flathead screwdriver, hold onto the rocker and loosen that bolt. You will see the rocker slightly shift in position as the bolt comes out. The reason being, if we can get that in the frame, it's collared, so the hole has a larger diameter than the actual screw. There's a collar at the top of the screw or the bolt that fits into there and holds it in place. You can remove that and then just carefully take your rocker out, and that will reveal the tiny little spring there. Let's see if I can get a bit of focus on it. I'll just use a flat blade screwdriver just to work the spring out. When I'm rebuilding, there's your spring and it goes into a little locator hole at the underneath of the action. When I'm rebuilding, I sometimes use a bit of liquid moly grease just to hold the screw in there, the spring in there. Okay, once you've done that, invert it again take your Allen key. You can now loosen the bolt that holds the complete trigger assembly on. If you do fancy having to do it stripping the trigger assembly, although I wouldn't know why you would want to, make sure you know what you're doing. Maybe take photographs or a video of it as you're going. But there's no reason why you can't drop that in an ultrasonic, give it a good rinse, and some form of spray, maybe a Napier spray, lubricant and protector. Okay, now we're just going to do the rebuild process, which is obviously simple reversal. There is data available for torque settings on all of these bolts. I suggest you use them, a competent gunsmith would. Once you've relocated the trigger assembly, turn it onto its side. As I've said, a small amount of moly grease on that spring will help the spring to stay in the hole. Last thing you want is it falling out. Take your rocker assembly. This has already been serviced recently, so there's an amount of grease in there already, so I'm not going to bother putting any more in. That slides up into your action. Provided you slide it in straight, it can't really go in the wrong place. But where your slot-headed bolt's going to go in, you need to make sure that the hole, which is slightly larger than the screw thread, as said before, is lined up centrally. If not, the screw will lock up on its collet as you're tightening it, and your rocker will no longer be a rocker. So tighten that up. As you can see, at this point I haven't got it central, and the collar's tightened up onto the rocker, which we don't want. So there you go. I'll just push it so it clicks in, tighten that to the recommended torque, and check for operation. At this point now, we can reinstall the mag tube. As I say, chamfered edge downwards, wider side to the rear, and then refix the stock to the action. Okay, we're now ready for reinserting the floor plate trigger housing, longer bolt to the back, and retighten with your Torx wrench. Once again, there will be a manufacturer's spec. If you've got access to this data, use it. You don't want to over tighten them. Any stripping of threads will more than likely occur in the action rather than on the bolt, and then you're in a whole world of pain. Okay, we can turn the gun back the right way up. The bolt system for the rebuild, there is a cutout, there's a machined drift on the side of the bolt which will only go in one way. Once that's clicked in, you're going to need two hands for this. You press that in and turn it ever so slightly anti-clockwise, at which point it'll lock itself in. You then, before you reinsert it into the rifle, turn it anti-clockwise until it clicks into position. That's then ready for reinserting back in the weapon. You don't need to touch the bolt release, as it will click forward onto that. The gun's now reassembled. Simple enough. As said, there's only really one spring in there that you can lose. Hope the video came in handy. Sorry about the quality. I've lost my little helper today. Thanks for watching.